The penthouse secret. I had just been fired when my former boss called, his voice cracking with desperation. Caleb, please man, you have to come back. The new CEO of the conglomerate is here, and she's specifically asking for you by name. Confusion flooded my mind. How could a CEO, someone who had just been parachuted in to run the parent company, possibly know a small fry like me? That question lingered until I pushed open the massive mahogany doors of the penthouse office. There, standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, was a familiar silhouette. It was the same girl who worked part-time at the corner 7-Eleven, the girl who told me she was saving up so she could help support my dreams. My sweet, innocent girlfriend, Sienna Vance. But right now, her face was a mask of cold professionalism as she looked down at the city. See? Sienna, my mind went blank. She stood up, the click of her designer heels echoing on the marble floor as she walked toward me. She reached out, adjusting my tie with practiced grace, her breath smelling faintly of expensive perfume. My new chief of staff is late on his very first day, she whispered, her voice a sultry silk. How should I punish you? She turned her gaze to my former boss, who was currently trembling in the corner. As for people who bully my man, do I need to teach you what happens to them? Or can you guess? Overnight, I went from a fired loser to the right-hand man of the most powerful woman in the city. Faced with the disdain of wealthy rivals and the whispers of the office calling me a trophy boyfriend, I had to prove one thing. Caleb Stone doesn't just live off a woman's success. My stomach was a churning pit of acid. My glass was filled yet again. Big Al Thompson, a greasy client with a predatory grin, pushed the tumbler of bourbon toward me. Caleb, if you don't drink this, it means you don't respect me. To land this account, I had already downed nearly a bottle of the hard stuff. My stomach felt like it was being twisted by a hot iron, and cold sweat was trickling down my neck. Beside me, my colleague Chloe Adams had gone pale. I reached for the glass, ready to force it down, when Big AL's fleshy hand slid onto Chloe's shoulder. You know, Chloe, you're a beautiful girl. You really should learn how to handle your liquor. His hand began to slide down her back. Chloe froze, her eyes darting to mine, filled with a silent plea for help. Something snapped in my brain. The alcohol hit me all at once. I stood up abruptly, stepping between Chloe and the client. Mr. Thompson, I'll take this one for her. Big AL's smile vanished instantly. He narrowed his eyes, looking at me like I was a particularly annoying bug. And who the hell are you supposed to be? I didn't answer. I just downed the bourbon in one go. The liquid burned like battery acid, and the cramp in my stomach intensified. Splash! A glass of chilled Cabernet hit me square in the face. The wine dripped from my hair, sticky and humiliating. You think you're a hero? Big Al snarled, pointing a finger at my nose. You're a pathetic corporate grunt. Do you have any idea that your commission on this deal wouldn't even cover the cost of my dinner? A few other clients at the table chuckled. My manager, Mr. Miller, came scurrying over, bowing and scraping before Big Al. Mr. Thompson, please don't be angry. He's new, he's an idiot. Miller snapped his head toward me, his face twisted in rage. Caleb, apologize to Mr. Thompson right now. I stood there, fists clenched, silent. Seeing that I wouldn't budge, Miller's face went purple. To appease Big Al, he pointed at the door. You're fired. Get out, and don't expect a dime of your bonus this month. My mind went numb. I walked out of the hotel into the biting night air. I pulled out my phone. The lock screen was a photo of me and Sienna. She was wearing a matching t-shirt we'd bought together, laughing in the sunlight. In the background of the photo was a jewelry store. I had sworn that by the end of the year, I'd use my bonus to buy her the ring she'd admired in that window. Now, that dream was dead. What kind of man was I? I couldn't even keep a job, let alone provide for her. I felt like a total failure. I dragged my feet back to our cramped apartment. When I opened the door, the smell of instant ramen hit me. Sienna was still in her 7-Eleven uniform. She held out a steaming bowl, topped with a perfect soft-boiled egg. You're home. Come eat, she said. But when she saw my soaked shirt and the red wine stains on my face, her smile vanished. Her eyes filled with pain. What happened? Did you get into a fight? She rushed over, her cool fingers reaching out to touch my face, then hesitating. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I pulled her into a tight hug, burying my face in the crook of her neck. Sienna, I got fired. I rasped, my voice breaking. She stiffened for a second, but she didn't ask why. She just rubbed my back, over and over, in a gentle, clumsy rhythm. It's okay. It's just a job. Take a break. I'll take care of you. Holding her, I finally let the tears fall. Looking at her face, tired from the double shifts at the store and the red marks on her wrists from moving heavy crates, my heart ached. I swore right then that I would get back on my feet. I couldn't let her carry me. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding migraine. The spot beside me was empty, though the sheets were still warm. On the table sat a sandwich and a glass of milk, weighted down by a sticky note in Sienna's neat handwriting. Don't forget to eat breakfast. I'm off to work. You got this. She'd drawn a goofy, smiley face at the bottom. I picked up the sandwich, but had no appetite. I opened a job board, and the sheer volume of listings felt like an ocean designed to drown me. I sent out dozens of resumes, but they all felt like messages in bottles tossed into a void. It was a small industry. The news that I'd offended Big L. Thompson had probably already spread. Who would hire the guy who insulted the biggest client in the city? My phone rang. The caller ID read, Mr. Miller. I almost hung up. I never wanted to hear that sniveling, cruel voice again. But after a moment's hesitation, I answered, Hello. There was a second of silence before a voice, so sycophantic it was barely recognizable, came through. Caleb. No, Caleb, sir. My savior. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I frowned. You have a wrong number. Don't hang up, please. Miller sounded like he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Something huge happened. A new CEO was just appointed to the parent company, Northstar Industries, and she started today. I scoffed. What did that have to do with me? The new CEO's first order of business. She asked for you. I froze. Me? Yes. By name. And Caleb, the Global Trade Center, the entire building our office is in. It's all owned by Northstar. Miller's voice was thick with terror. Caleb, I'm begging you come back. If you don't, we're all getting evicted today. My mind was spinning. A new CEO? Northstar Industries? I was just a sales rep. Why would a titan like that care about me? Was this something to do with Big Al? But I was just the guy who blocked his drink. Ping. A text from Sienna. Store is quiet today. Don't stress too much about the job hunt. Come home early for dinner. Reading her text, I felt even more conflicted. She was worrying about my next meal while I was being swept into some corporate storm. Who was the CEO? Driven by anxiety and curiosity, I took an Uber back to the office. As soon as I walked through the lobby, the receptionist jumped like she'd seen a ghost. Mr. Stone, welcome back. The entire office fell silent. Colleagues looked at me with a mix of awe, jealousy, and fear. My old supervisor looked like he wanted to hide under his desk. Miller came running out of the elevator like a golden retriever, a desperate smile plastered on his face. You're here. Thank God. He bowed, personally pressing the button for the express elevator to the penthouse. The CEO is waiting for you. The elevator rose smoothly, but my heart was sinking. The penthouse was a restricted zone, the headquarters of Northstar Industries. The doors opened to a hallway lined with plush carpets. At the end, in front of massive double doors, stood two guards in black suits. They bowed slightly and opened the doors for me. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it would burst. I took a breath and stepped inside. The office was massive. In front of a giant window, a woman in a bespoke charcoal suit stood with her back to me, looking out at the city. Her silhouette. Why was it so familiar? Hearing my footsteps, she slowly rotated the high-backed leather chair. A face I knew better than my own appeared before me. She was wearing elegant, sharp makeup, her eyes keen and her lips curved into a playful, unfamiliar smile. It was Sienna, but it wasn't the Sienna who worked at the 7-Eleven or made me ramen. My brain stalled. My blood felt like it had turned to ice. Was I dreaming? Was this the hangover? She stood up, walking toward me on 4-inch heels. Her presence was so commanding I could barely breathe. She leaned back against her desk, crossing her legs, and beckoned me with a finger. Come here. The view from the topi moved toward her like a puppet with its strings cut. She stopped an inch away from me, suddenly reaching out and grabbing my tie, pulling me flush against her. The distance between us vanished. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral, nothing like the vanilla soap we share at home. She leaned in my ear and whispered, so only I could hear. My new chief of staff is late on his very first day. How should I punish you? I was paralyzed. She let out a soft laugh, released my tie, and picked up a folder from her desk. Without looking at it, she tossed it to Miller, who had been hovering by the door. What was the name of the man who bullied him yesterday? Something with a Thompson? Miller trembled. Al Thompson, Mung. Big Al. Right, Sienna said casually. I've already initiated a hostile takeover of his holdings. He'll be filing for bankruptcy by Monday. She looked at Miller, her eyes turning cold as ice. As for you, get out. You're done. I stood there, feeling like my entire world had been flipped upside down. My girlfriend was a billionaire CEO. From today on, Sienna announced, her voice projecting to the executives now gathered at the door. Caleb Stone is my chief of staff. He reports only to me. She had announced my new position in front of everyone. My new office was a suite within her own, larger than our entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a lounge area, a private bathroom, and a bar stocked with every snack and drink imaginable. I stood there awkwardly, feeling like a commoner who had accidentally wandered into a palace. "Caleb, come in here," Sienna called. I walked in her main office. She was frowning at a spread of about a dozen gourmet pastries. "My first official task," I asked tentatively. She pointed at the sweets, her expression dead serious. "Help me taste these. Tell me which one is best. I want to know the flavors, but I don't want the calories of eating all of them." I blinked. This was the job. I picked up a small spoon and took a bite of each, eventually telling her the mango mousse was the winner. She nodded with satisfaction and had her secretary clear the rest away. The second task followed quickly. "Pick a lipstick shade for my afternoon meeting." She pushed a tray of at least 50 lipsticks toward me. The colors were a dizzying blur. I picked one up and held it near her lips, my hand shaking. She suddenly leaned in, her nose almost touching mine, her warm breath on my skin. She lowered her voice, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "What's the matter? Never seen me in makeup before? Don't recognize me?" My heart skipped a beat. I took a step back, flustered. This red looks good." At lunch, I headed to the break room to grab some water. I could hear the hushed voices as I approached. "Did you hear? The new CEO brought in some guy and made him chief of staff immediately." "Chief of staff? More like Chief Boy Toy. He's just like candy. Must be nice to sleep your way to the top. I wonder what she sees in a pretty face like that." The words stung like needles. I walked in, my expression neutral. The gossip died instantly. A few women looked down, embarrassed, and scurried away. I felt a hollow ache in my chest. Back in the office, Sienna was on a video call. She was facing a screen full of gray-haired board members, her arguments sharp and logical, dismantling their objections one by one. In that moment, she was powerful, brilliant, and radiant, and she felt like a total stranger. For lunch, she turned down several high-powered invitations and had her secretary order takeout. It was Thai food from the place down the street from our apartment, the place we went to when we felt like splurging. She sat in her multi-million-dollar office, eating spicy noodles with me, expertly moving the shrimp and extra tofu from her bowl into mine. "Eat up," she said, just like she always did. "You're too thin. You need your strength for work." The contrast was jarring. It gave me a sweet sense of familiarity, but also a crushing sense of dread. Who did I love? The girl in the 7-Eleven uniform? Or the woman who could crush a man's career with a phone call? Were they really the same person? After work, Mr. Miller cornered me in the parking garage, holding an expensive-looking gift box. "Caleb, please, a small token of my apology. You have to take it." He shoved the box into my hands. I opened it to find a Rolex, a watch that cost more than my entire previous year's salary. "I told you I don't want it." I shoved the box back into his chest. Being treated like a king didn't feel good. It felt like being a pet, a canary in a gilded cage. When I got home, the silence of the apartment felt suffocating. I opened my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keys. I typed the words letter of resignation. I love Sienna. I love the girl who rode the bus with me and ate street food. I couldn't just sit back and be kept by her. I needed to stand on my own 2 feet, not be an accessory to her life. Late that night, Sienna came home. She had changed back into an old cotton t-shirt and jeans, her face showing signs of exhaustion. Seeing I was still up, she hugged me from behind, resting her head on my shoulder. Waiting for me? Was work too much today? I stiffened. I forced myself to pull away and turn the laptop screen toward her. "Sienna, we need to talk." The smile vanished from her face the moment she saw the resignation letter. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced by a shimmer of tears I had never seen before. "You're leaving?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you leaving me too?" It was the first time I had ever seen her look so fragile. "Caleb, I didn't mean to lie to you," she said, sitting beside me. For the first time, she told me the truth. She was the sole heiress to North Star Industries, raised in a world of cutthroat politics and fake smiles. She had hated it, so she ran away to experience a normal life. The 7-Eleven job was her attempt to live on her own terms. Meeting me and falling in love had been the only real thing in her life. "With you, I felt like a human being, not just a brand name," she said, tears trekking down her cheeks. "I wanted to tell you when the time was right. But my grandfather got sick, the board started a coup, and I had to come back to save the company." She grabbed the hem of my shirt. "I thought you were different. Caleb, you don't have to be my assistant. You could do anything you want. But please, don't leave me." She slammed the laptop shut as if trying to destroy the letter itself. My heart felt like it was being ripped out. I pulled her into my arms, realizing for the first time that her world of gold and glass was also a world of knives and shadows. She wasn't an all-powerful queen. She was a woman who was tired and scared. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'm right here." The resignation was forgotten for now, but I knew the problem would come back if I didn't change the dynamic. I couldn't live under her wing forever. Sienna wanted me to attend a major charity gala with her. In her words, it was time to officially introduce me to her world. I was wearing a custom-tailored tuxedo, the fabric finer than anything I'd ever touched, but I felt like an imposter. The suit felt like a costume. The gala was held in a massive ballroom, filled with the scent of expensive lilies and the clink of crystal. Sienna was the center of attention the moment she entered. She held my arm, smiling gracefully as she spoke with various dignitaries. I stood there like a mannequin, offering stiff smiles. Then, a tall, strikingly handsome man approached us. He wore a suit similar to mine, but he wore it with an effortless, innate authority. That was something I couldn't fake. "Sienna, you finally made it." The man greeted her with a familiar air, his eyes sliding over to me. "Caleb, this is Julian Thorne. Our families have known each other for years," Sienna said. Then she looked at Julian. "Julian, this is my boyfriend, Caleb Stone." "Boyfriend?" Julian raised an eyebrow, extending a hand with a polite smile. "Mr. Stone, a pleasure. I am Julian." He seemed friendly, but I could feel the cold, sharp disdain in his eyes. "Ah, the new chief of staff everyone is talking about," Julian said, putting a heavy, mocking emphasis on the word special. The weight of the crown, I shook his hand. His grip was crushing, a silent challenge. Throughout the evening, Julian hovered near us, engaging Sienna in conversations about venture capital, overseas acquisitions, and equity mergers, topics I knew nothing about. I felt like a ghost, a piece of furniture on my own girlfriend's side. I caught the whispers of the other guests. Julian and Sienna looked like royalty together. A perfect match. "Who's the guy with her? Looks like a bodyguard." I heard he was just a regular clerk, she picked up. Talk about a lucky break. The words were low, but they hit me like physical blows. My face burned. Sienna noticed my tension. She made an excuse to leave the party early. In the car, a heavy silence settled between us. She reached out and took my hand. "Caleb, don't listen to them." I forced a smile. "I'm Fine." But Julian's unspoken message, "You don't belong here," was a thorn buried deep in my heart. Julian began showing up at North Star under the guise of partnership. He was brilliant and arrogant, never showing his hostility openly, but constantly acting in ways that highlighted the gap between us. One afternoon, he walked into Sienna's office with a proposal for an acquisition in Europe. I was there, organizing files for her. "Sienna, take a look at this. My team has been working on it for months. It'll be huge for North Star's expansion." He laid the thick folder on her desk with the confidence of a man who already had the yes. He glanced at me and smiled. "Oh, Caleb, since you're the chief of staff, why don't you give us your expert opinion on the strategic alignment?" It was a trap. He wanted to humiliate me in front of her. I stood there, staring at the documents, unable to even decipher the technical jargon. The silence in the room became unbearable. Sienna's expression turned cold. She didn't even look at the folder. She pushed it back toward him. "Julian, my assistant, doesn't handle business operations. He handles me." Her voice was quiet but carried a sharp edge. She turned to me, her eyes softening. "Caleb, my stomach is acting up. Could you go make me some warm tea with honey?" She had used the simplest task to rescue me from the humiliation. By the time I returned with the tea, Julian was gone. "You think I'm useless too, don't you?" I asked quietly, putting the tea down. Sienna looked me in the eye. "Caleb, my world is full of people like Julian. They're a dime a dozen. But in this whole world, you're the only person who would make me ramen with 2 eggs when I'm too tired to speak. You're the only person who tells me those stupid jokes when I'm stressed. You're the only one who makes this office feel like a home and not just a cold glass box. You don't need to be like him. You are irreplaceable because you are you." Her words were like a warmed tide washing away my insecurities. I pulled her into a hug. My value wasn't measured in business acumen. To her, I was everything. Shortly after, a North Star charity project for children hit a PR nightmare. Articles flooded the internet, accusing the company of using poor rural communities for stage photo ops while providing useless, flashy supplies instead of real help. The company's image was tanking. The PR team was panicking. Julian, as a partner, suggested using a heavy-handed legal approach to silence the critics and burying the story with expensive ads. Sienna hated the idea. She had spearheaded this project and truly wanted to help those kids. She was losing sleep over it. I looked through the project files. The data was cold and corporate. It lacked the one thing that mattered: heart. It was giving from a distance, never listening. Sienna, I said, let's do something real. Everyone stared. Julian laughed. Caleb, this is crisis management, not an indie film. We don't have time for your feelings. Sienna ignored him. What are you thinking, Caleb? No PR scripts. No massive team. Just me and a cameraman. We go to the rural schools in Appalachia where the project is active. We record the real lives and dreams of those kids, and the tiny, honest ways the project actually helped them. Sienna thought for a moment and nodded. Do it. I spent a week in rural West Virginia. We lived with the families, ate with the kids, and listened to their stories. I wrote every caption and script myself. No corporate buzzwords, just the truth. I released a photo essay titled Small Lights in the Mountains on the company's social media. At first, it was quiet, but the power of sincerity began to spread. One video showed a boy shyly saying the backpack he received was the first birthday present he'd ever gotten. A girl talked about how the doctors the project sent had cured her grandmother's chronic cough. The narrative flipped. The media that had attacked us began sharing our stories, praising North Star for a charity with a heartbeat. Julian's expensive corporate tactics looked hollow compared to my clumsy truth. At the victory dinner, Sienna raised her glass in front of the board. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. The credit for saving our reputation doesn't go to our PR firm or a business plan. It goes to my chief of staff, Caleb Stone. For the first time, under the gaze of the elite, I felt like I belonged. I hadn't used her power. I had used my own, but this success made me a target. Julian couldn't handle losing to a nobody. In a fit of rage, he began digging into my past, looking for dirt. He found Lexi Reed, my ex-girlfriend from college. We had dated briefly when I was struggling financially, but we'd been out of touch for years. Julian paid her to lure me into a trap. Lexi called me, crying. She said she was terminally ill and just wanted to see me one last time before she died. It sounded fishy, but I agreed to meet her at a cafe near the office. When I arrived, she looked pale and frail. But the moment I sat down, she lunged across the table, throwing her arms around me. Caleb, I was so wrong to leave you. Please, let's start over. I can't live without you. I was stunned and tried to push her away. In that second, I saw a flash from across the street. A camera. My stomach dropped. It was a setup. The truth and the trap eye forced Lexi off me, and she fell back in her seat, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Julian. A photo. In the shot, Lexi was clinging to me while I appeared to be looking down at her tenderly. The angle made it look incredibly intimate. Then Julian called. Did you get the photo, Caleb? He asked, his voice dripping with malice. I suggest you leave Sienna now. Otherwise, this hits the tabloids tomorrow morning. North Star CEO's boyfriend caught with secret lover. Do you want to make her the laughingstock of the business world? You're a leech. Go back to the gutter where you belong. I hung up, my blood running cold. I was furious at Julian, but I was terrified for Sienna. I didn't want her to suffer because of me. I walked back to the office, my heart in my throat. I pushed open the door to find Sienna sitting quietly behind her desk. She wasn't working. She was just staring at me with an expression of absolute frost. On her desk sat the same photo. My heart sank. I expected her to scream, to fire me, to throw me out. I was ready for her rage. But she didn't say a word. She just pushed her phone toward me. It was playing a video. The video showed Julian handing an envelope of cash to Lexi in front of the very same cafe. Then came a recording of Julian telling Lexi exactly how to stage the embrace. I looked up at Sienna, shocked. Caleb, she said calmly, the moment I decided to take over this company, I made sure I knew everything about everyone who comes near me, including you. She stood up and walked to me, smoothing the frown lines on my forehead. I know your whole history. I know your exes, why you broke up, and what kind of man you are. I trust you completely. Julian's tactics are pathetic. They don't hurt me. Her voice turned lethal. But I don't like it when people mess with my man. She looked me in the eye. Now, how do you want to handle this? This is your fight. In that moment, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a partner. All my fear turned into a focused, powerful anger. I pulled out my phone and called Julian on speaker. Julian, I got the photo, I said firmly. Julian laughed. Smart move. When are you packing your bags? I just wanted to tell you one thing, I said. I bet on Sienna trusting me. Now, it's your turn to lose. Julian went silent, confused. Beside me, Sienna picked up her private line and said 3 words, do it now. 30 minutes later, the financial news apps exploded. Thorne global hit with federal investigation for securities fraud and illegal market manipulation. Julian's empire began to crumble within the hour. He called back, screaming insults. I didn't say anything. Sienna took the phone from my hand and said, "You don't have the standing to touch what's mine." She hung up. The office went quiet. We had won, but I knew the biggest hurdle was still ahead. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from Arthur Vance, Sienna's father and the chairman of the board. He invited me to a private, traditional tea house. I went alone. Inside, the air smelled of sandalwood. Arthur Vance was dressed in a simple suit, brewing tea with practiced precision. He didn't yell, and he didn't offer me a check to leave his daughter. He just watched me with eyes that had seen 1,000 corporate wars. "Sit," he said, handing me a cup. "Sienna has been much happier lately. You've made her more human. She isn't just a machine anymore." He acknowledged my positive influence, but then his voice hardened. "However, I still don't believe you're the right partner for her. Her path will involve enemies far more dangerous than Julian Thorne. She needs a titan by her side, not a vulnerability she has to protect." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. I didn't beg or make grand promises. I took a sip of the tea and told him about our life together. I told him about the night I was fired and the ramen she made me. I told him about picking out her lipstick and eating takeout on the office floor. "Mr. Vance," I said, "I can't give her an empire. I can't help her with a merger. But I can give her a home. When she's exhausted from the war out there, I am the place where she can take off her armor and sleep peacefully. That's all I have to give." The room went silent. Arthur Vance stared at me for a long time. Then the door opened. Sienna stood there, her eyes red. She had been listening. She walked over and gripped my hand tightly, facing her father. "Dad, your empire is big enough. The money is just a number. But you only have one daughter, and I only have one home." The old man looked at our joined hands. The steel in his eyes melted into a sigh of reluctant acceptance. "Fine," he muttered. "Bring him to dinner this Sunday. At the house." It was a blessing. Walking out of the tea house, the sun was bright. Sienna leaned her head on my shoulder. "See? We won." I held her hand, feeling more grounded than ever. We had beaten the class divide. We had beaten the prejudice. We were finally on the same side. I officially handed Sienna my resignation that afternoon. This time, she smiled and accepted it. The title of Chief of Staff was a conflict of interest, and it was time for it to go. I used my savings and the bonus from the charity project to rent a small office in a modest downtown building. I started my own creative marketing agency. I wasn't her subordinate or her assistant anymore. I was her equal. On opening day, Sienna sent a flower arrangement so large it barely fit in the lobby. It had a massive banner to my favorite entrepreneur, Caleb Stone. "Wishing you huge success from your exclusive investor, Sienna Vance." I laughed and took the banner down, embarrassed but happy. Life returned to a busy, fulfilling rhythm. One Friday night, I was working late at my new office. Sienna showed up in a silk robe and slippers, carrying a thermal container. "Mr. CEO, it's late. Don't you ever go home?" She opened the container to reveal hot pork rib soup. She tried to make me some noodles in the small office kitchenette, but she ended up making a mess, a smudge of flour on her cheek. She looked like an adorable kitten. I laughed, hugged her from behind, and took the spatula. Soon, a bowl of scallion noodles was ready. She wrapped her arms around my waist, pressing her face to my back. "Caleb, what if your agency fails?" she whispered. I turned around, wiping the flour from her nose. "It won't," I said seriously. "But even if it does, I'll still take care of you." She blinked, and then those sharp, powerful eyes softened into the beautiful, gentle smile I loved most. She leaned up on her tiptoes and kissed me. Outside, the city lights sparkled, the world she ruled. Inside, the room smelled of home and noodles, the world we shared. My Sienna, whether she was the girl at the corner store or the CEO of a global empire, it didn't matter. She was my Sienna, my one and only. Story complete.